In our headlines on this Tuesday, March 24th, here in South Korea, U.S. President Donald Trump says he's holding off planned strikes against Iran's power plants amid, quote, very good talks between Washington and Tehran, but Tehran denies any such discussion. Meanwhile, President Lee Jae-myung stresses the importance of having in place an emergency response mechanism in preparation for the worst-case scenarios in the Middle East. Across the border, North Korea's Kim Jong-un reaffirms his commitment to nuclear weapons and the regime's animosity towards South Korea, calling it the most hostile state. Roughly 12 hours before the end of his 48-hour ultimatum to Iran, Mr. Trump announced a 5-day pause on his deadline, citing alleged talks between the U.S. and Iran. Now, Iran, for its part, has denied any such interaction. Our Kim Do-yeon has the latest.
U.S. President Donald Trump announced a sudden shift in military plans against Tehran on Monday, saying that talks between the U.S. and Iran have seen progress. While Iran denied that discussions had taken place, President Trump ordered a 5-day postponement of threatened attacks targeting Iranian energy infrastructure. Trump had given Iran 48 hours to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or face attacks on its power plants, but has shifted his stance as that deadline approaches.
I think there's a very good chance we're going to end up in a deal, and so we're giving it 5 days, and then we're going to see where that takes us.
The U.S. leader indicated that initial contact could pave the way for a permanent resolution to the ongoing conflict and address Washington's core demands.
So we are now having really good discussions. They started last night, a little bit the night before that, and I think they're very good. They want peace. They've agreed they will not have a nuclear weapon.
The suspension is being closely watched by U.S. allies in the region. After a call with President Trump, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu emphasized that any diplomatic outcome must secure his country's strategic goals.
President Trump believes there is a possibility to leveraging the mighty achievements obtained by the IDF and the U.S. military in order to realize the goals of the war in a deal that will preserve our vital interests.
Tehran, however, remains firm that Trump's claims are fake news, with officials accusing Washington of fabricating the talks to buy time. The Iranian military also dismissed Western intelligence reports about the deployment of explosives in regional waterways and reaffirmed its control of the Strait of Hormuz.
Given this level of control and capability, there is no need to lay mines in the Persian Gulf. However, if necessary, we will use all available means to ensure security.
With the 5-day suspension now in effect, Washington's deadline for a negotiated resolution has been extended to this Saturday. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Here in South Korea, President Lee Jae-myung has highlighted the importance of a proactive stance to better address the broader potential fallout from the ongoing unrest in the Middle East. Our correspondent Yoon Jung-min covers his latest remarks.
Devising an emergency response system in a preemptive manner so that the conflict in the Middle East does not pose grave threats to lives in Korea. That's what President Lee Jae-myung has instructed his officials to do, with response measures topping Tuesday's cabinet meeting agenda for a third straight week.
각 부처는 수급 우려 품목을 포괄적이고 꼼꼼하게 점검하시고 또 그것들이 국민의 일상에 미칠 영향 그리고 대체 공급선은 어디인지 등을 세밀하게 파악해서 최악의 상황까지 가정한 대비책을 철저하게.
With global oil prices rising, authorities will update the fuel price cap rule and announce it later this week. The president also vowed to strongly punish any attempts at price collusion, adding that the prosecution has launched investigations into oil refiners.
정유업계도 국가기관 산업으로서의 공적 책무를 깊이 인식하고 국가적 위기 극복 노력에 함께 동참해 주시기 바랍니다.
To reduce private vehicle use on workdays, public institutions will adopt a system limiting use based on the last digit of license plate numbers. As for private firms, Yi asked them to join the campaign to save energy. President Yi revisited the need to swiftly organize a war response extra budget.
왜 세금으로 지원하냐? 빚내서 지원 또 하는 거냐? 퍼주냐? 왜 지역화폐로 주냐? 뭐 이런 등등의 지적이 있어요. 그래서 이번 추경은 초과세수, 예상되는 초과세수라는 거지 빚내서 하는 거 절대 아닙니다. 그리고 빚내서 만약 초과세수가 없었다면 빚을 내서라도 해야 돼요.
He added the tax revenues exceeded expectations in the second half of last year as the economy started to improve. All this as the International Energy Agency warns of the greatest global energy security threat in history. South Korea is one of the world's largest energy buyers, with the Middle East being a major source. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
A dramatic drop in the price of gold has unsettled investors in recent times. That being said, our business correspondent Park Hong-geun takes a look at the reasons behind the plunge in price.
The price of the safe haven asset gold has been showing volatility in recent months. Hitting over $5,600 per troy ounce in late January, the gold price as of Tuesday is trading at around $4,300, down over 20% in just less than 2 months. Largely, this is due to fears stemming from the conflict in the Middle East outweighing the demand for gold as a safe haven. This comes as a surprise, as during geopolitical tensions or periods of uncertainty, demand for precious metals such as gold and silver, among others, is boosted. Instead, surging oil prices triggered by the war have reignited fears of global inflation. Also, higher energy costs are reducing expectations that the U.S. Federal Reserve and other central banks will cut interest rates at their upcoming rate-setting meetings.
But the biggest thing probably is investors are concerned that it's had a big run. They're concerned that there are not going to be interest rate cuts. So you're going to lose more opportunity cost of holding it versus getting some type of interest off of gold.
Because gold prices are sensitive to interest rates, oil prices, and the value of the dollar, any meaningful peace deals in the Middle East and eased inflation risks could help gold prices bounce back. Despite the sharp correction and short-term volatility, major banks have not lowered their 2026 targets. JP Morgan forecasts gold reaching $6,300 per ounce by the end of 2026, while Bank of America maintained its $6,000 target. Park Hong-geun, Arirang News.
In other news now, Cameroon is scheduled to host the 14th Ministerial Conference of the World Trade Organization later this week. And ahead of that gathering, the U.S. has reiterated its calls for reform within the body, finding fault with the status of some members, including South Korea. Our Kim Jun-hong explains.
The United States is stepping up pressure on countries, including South Korea, to give up their developing country status at the World Trade Organization. The U.S. Trade Representative released a reform report on Tuesday, signaling Washington's intent to crack down on what it sees as free riding within the WTO system. Citing U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer, the report describes the current global order in international trade as untenable and unsustainable. Washington argues that reforming special and differential treatment, or SDT, is key to restoring the organization's credibility. SDT allows developing countries greater flexibility, including slower tariff cuts and extended timelines for implementing trade commitments. At the heart of the issue is the WTO's binary classification of developed and developing countries, which Washington says no longer reflects today's economic realities. Under the current system, highly developed economies can still self-declare as developing countries and receive preferential treatment. The report points to 4 countries: Brazil, Singapore, South Korea, and Costa Rica. It says that although such nations pledged to forego SDT provisions in past negotiations, they still retain self-declared developing country status. The United States also outlined reform steps proposing stronger incentives for countries that comply with notification requirements by properly reporting trade-related measures. Washington also called for clearer objective criteria to determine developing country status. Based on the report, the U.S. is expected to press hard for reform at the WTO Ministerial Conference, set to open in the coming days. Rising protectionism driven by the tariff policies of the Donald Trump administration has put the multilateral trading system under mounting strain. South Korea chose to keep its developing country status in 2019 while opting not to seek the associated benefits. Kim Junong, Arirang News.
And the National Assembly has adopted a confirmation report for Park Hong-geun as Minister of the newly created Ministry of Planning and Budget. Lawmakers across the aisle backed the adoption, ending a leadership vacuum at the agency following the breakup of the Finance Ministry's long-standing super-ministry structure. Park had used his confirmation hearing to pledge sweeping reforms, offering lawmakers a greater role in the budget review process. North Korea's Kim Jong-un has reaffirmed his commitment to nuclear weapons and the regime's animosity towards South Korea, warning of callous consequences if challenged. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has formally labeled South Korea the most hostile state and warned of merciless consequences if Pyongyang is provoked. According to the Korean Central News Agency on Tuesday, Kim made the remarks on the final day of the first session of the Supreme People's Assembly, declaring that Seoul has now been officially designated as North Korea's principal adversary. He warned that South Korea would pay the price for any provocation and reaffirmed that North Korea's status as a nuclear weapons state will never change, vowing continued efforts to confront what he described as hostile forces. The comments came as Kim secured a third consecutive term as chairman of the State Affairs Commission, the country's top policy guidance body created in 2016. His re-election was confirmed during the parliamentary session held on Sunday. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin congratulated Kim on his re-election and expressed hope for deeper cooperation between Moscow and Pyongyang. In a message released by the Kremlin on Monday, Putin praised Kim's role in strengthening what he called a friendly and allied relationship between the two countries, adding that continued collaboration would serve their fundamental national interests. Ties between Russia and North Korea have strengthened in recent years. The two countries signed a mutual defense treaty in 2024, and North Korea has sent troops to support Russia's war effort in Ukraine. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov also said Kim has a standing invitation to visit Russia, noting that Moscow would welcome him once diplomatic channels finalize the timing. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, on the silver screen, the King's Warden continues to gather moviegoers, ranking third on Korea's all-time admissions chart. Our Cho Young-eun has more.
Over the weekend, the film drew more than 800,000 moviegoers nationwide, holding the #1 spot for a 7th consecutive week and bringing its cumulative audience to 14.84 million. With this milestone, the film has become the third most watched movie in Korea's box office history, following The Admiral Roaring Currents, which drew 17.61 million viewers, and Extreme Job, which recorded 16.26 million admissions. Since its release on February 4, the film has shown no signs of slowing down. Directed by Jang Hang-jun, it marks his first film to surpass 10 million admissions, a milestone that even the director himself said took him by surprise. The film has also set a new all-time revenue record, surpassing 142.5 billion won, according to the Korean Film Council. The drama follows the exile of young King Danjong during the Joseon Dynasty, captivating audiences and gaining widespread popularity. Amid this, the cast has been actively meeting audiences through theater events, further spotlighting the film's semi-historical narrative.
We never expected this much love for our film, and we don't know how to thank everyone enough.
There will be various programs where you can experience King Danjong's story more closely. We hope many people will join.
The film's broader cultural impact is also gaining momentum. With its unpredictable box office trajectory, The King's Warden is setting a new benchmark for the Korean film industry, drawing attention to where its final total will land. As it approaches the 15 million mark, the film will also be screened nationwide from April 6 to 20 in an inclusive format featuring audio descriptions and Korean subtitles. Its overseas rollout is gaining momentum. Having launched in the US on February 13, it is now screening in over 50 cities across the US and Canada, further expanding its global reach. Jo Young-eun, Arirang News.
And K-pop sensation BTS's return is also fueling fresh interest in Korea's cultural heritage among global fans here. Our Chung Hye-rim shows us how.
BTS's comeback show may be over, but fans can relive the energy in Seoul. Following the weekend concert, major national institutions are welcoming the influx of global fans with special exhibitions and events incorporated with Korean culture. At the National Museum of Korea, fans can view traditional artifacts such as the 10-story stone pagoda and moon jar, pieces known to have captured the BTS members' interest, with an English guide provided. But the experience goes beyond the exhibits. A major highlight is the exclusive collaboration between BTS's fifth album Arirang and the museum's official merchandise brand Mute. Fans have been buying items ranging from traditional Korean-themed hairpins to modern clothing and bags, blending Korea's rich heritage with the group's new music.
I think that's the highlight. Like they try to incorporate the national treasure, if I'm not mistaken, like the bell, into the merch. So I think it's a really nice touch. Also Korean, also BTS.
Over at the National Folk Museum, games that members actually played from the popular YouTube show Run BTS have been brought to life. The outdoor K-playground offers tourists the chance to try their hand at traditional games like spinning tops or 팽이, 투호, 제기차기, and 딱지치기. Visitors laugh and show enthusiasm for Korea's oldest games.
Bullseye or not, games like 투호 and spinning tops offer a truly unique experience. By playing traditional Korean games, fans aren't just having fun. They're connecting with their favorite stars on a whole new level.
Over at the National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art's dedicated listening space, Love Quarter, fans dive into a completely different vibe. Bathed in blue light, the space is filled with BTS's new title track, Swim. Paper installations move with the wind like ocean waves, giving visitors the surreal sensation of swimming through the music as they read the lyrics surrounding them.
It's great. I mean, it has like a lot of like the lyrics, and it's really nice to see it. It really feels like you're in the ocean, so like it's a very immersive experience.
The cultural celebration extends to other venues as well, featuring a BTS time capsule at the National Museum of Korean Contemporary History and an exhibition of Korean literature that inspired the group's music at the National Library. Chung Hye-rim, Arirang News.
A growing number of Korean cities are adopting self-driving buses, and one city in Gyeonggi-do province also has a level 4 autonomous vehicle. Now, under the US-based Society of Automotive Engineers, level 1 is the most basic, while level 5 refers to a fully automated vehicle which currently does not exist. Our Cha Yoon-kyung files this report.
Inside a bus navigating downtown, the steering wheel turns on its own without a driver touching it. The vehicle even executes right turns in sync with traffic signals. This is a level 3 self-driving bus, where a human driver intervenes only during emergencies. Currently, these buses operate during the day and late at night in areas with limited public transit access. Since its launch in April last year, approximately 25,000 passengers have used the service.
Here's the number 5 bus that goes to Bumgae Station. But this one is much faster. So, unless it's a Monday, I take this bus almost every day.
Anyang City has also introduced a level 4 autonomous shuttle. A striking feature of this vehicle is the complete absence of a driver's seat and side mirrors. To give the public a hands-on experience, the shuttle operates 3 round trips daily along a 3-kilometer designated route.
We believe that the success of autonomous driving in Korea depends on the stable integration of this system. Therefore, the role of local governments is absolutely crucial.
Anyang City plans to reduce dispatch intervals and expand the routes into densely populated residential areas. As cities like Seongnam and Suwon also introduce autonomous vehicles, the technological competition among local governments is heating up. Cha Yoon-kyung, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. A new report released on Monday shows that the timing of joint U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran on February 28th was changed by newly surfaced intelligence. According to Reuters, a meeting between Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and top military officials at his Tehran compound was moved from the night of the 28th to the morning, narrowing an already fragile window for a potential decapitation strike. That shift set off an urgent call between U.S. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Trump had already approved a strike against Iran in principle, but was still debating the timing. Netanyahu pressed that the moment might never return, with intelligence now showing Iran's leadership in one place. Trump ultimately made the call that triggered Operation Epic Fury and killed Khamenei. In the U.S., a passenger jet landing at New York's LaGuardia airport crashed into a fire truck on the runway, killing both pilots. The Air Canada flight collided with the vehicle just before midnight Sunday as it touched down from Montreal. Officials say the fire truck had clearance to cross the runway while responding to another aircraft. Air traffic control recordings capture a last-second warning telling the truck to stop. The impact destroyed the cockpit, killed both pilots, and injured dozens on board and on the ground. Investigators are looking into how runway coordination failed. In Colombia, a military aircraft carrying more than 120 people crashed in the country's southwest. The Hercules C-130 transport plane went down just after takeoff on Monday near Puerto Leguizamo in Putumayo province. Officials say 121 people were on board, mostly soldiers. At least one person died and 77 were injured, with rescue efforts still ongoing. Authorities say the aircraft went down just 2 kilometers from the airport, but they have not confirmed the cause. Colombian pop star Shakira will perform in Madrid this September, building a custom venue for tens of thousands of fans. Organizers say the singer will stage 6 shows in September at a purpose-built site holding up to 50,000 people. The venue will be built at Madrid's Iberdrola Music Grounds on the city's outskirts and will operate under the name Macondo Park. Promoters say the project will center on Latin culture. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
It was a cozy day with temperatures above average. Tomorrow we'll continue to see the warmth, but there will be large day-to-night temperature differences, so please take care. Meanwhile, with stagnant air, fine dust is building up. Tomorrow, ultra-fine dust levels will reach bad across the capital area, the Chungcheong-do provinces, inland Gangwon-do province, and Jeollabuk-do province. As for temperatures, Seoul will start the day at 8 degrees Celsius, Chuncheon at 4 degrees, Busan at 11 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 19 degrees, Chuncheon at 21 degrees, Jeju at 18 degrees. Rain will begin on Jeju-do Island late tonight, then spread to the southern coastlines by early tomorrow morning. Once the rain clears, we'll see clear skies nationwide through the weekend, with large day-to-night temperature swings, so please take care. That's all for Korea. Here's a look at the weather around the world.
Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. As always, thank you for watching.